Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Listen, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of vocabulary, the crazy grammar rules, or those weird pronunciation quirks involved in learning English, you are in the exact right place. Today, we are going to treat language learning just like building a house. Think about it. You wouldn't just start tossing bricks together and hope for the best, right? First, you absolutely need a blueprint. So together, we're going to establish a really strong, unbreakable foundation. We'll gather the exact right tools for the job, meticulously patch up those structural grammar cracks that might be holding you back, and finally, add the beautiful finishing touches by mastering the actual physical sounds of the language.
Okay, let's dive into this highly organized roadmap. We'll be covering the ultimate study plan, stacking apps like a pro, fixing common grammar mistakes, and finally, mastering sounds and speaking.
All right, Section 1, the ultimate study plan. Mindset and mini victories. Before we even think about touching a single flashcard, we really need to get our mindset right. As language experts constantly point out, learning isn't just a straight highway. Actually, it's more like sailing. Some days you literally feel like you're just going in circles. So to avoid feeling totally lost, we're going to anchor ourselves with this fantastic Napoleon Hill quote, "A goal is a dream with a deadline." Just saying, "Oh, I want to be fluent someday," well, that's just a dream. To make it a real, tangible goal, we absolutely need actionable deadlines.
I like to think about this through what I call the Super Mario Kart strategy. When you're playing a racing game, you don't just stare at the finish line the entire time, do you? No, the game gives you these little checkpoints along the way, and every single time you cross one, you get a time extension and a fun little burst of celebration. That's exactly how fluency works. It isn't a single finish line you cross one magical day, it's a series of small, celebrated checkpoints. Honestly, these mini victories are exactly what will keep your motivation alive week after week.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, you have to ditch that vague statement, "I want to be fluent." Instead, set highly specific, measurable goals. Let's say, setting a 2-week deadline to confidently order food at a restaurant in English. Or maybe prepping a 10-minute presentation on a hobby you're obsessed with. Or just holding a 5-minute conversation about your daily routine. Notice how these are totally measurable. You either did them or you didn't. And when you do hit them, you celebrate that victory and boom, you set the next one.
Moving on to Section 2, stacking apps like a pro, the modern toolkit.
Now that we've got our foundation and our plan, we need to gather our tools, but without falling victim to app fatigue, because that is a real thing. And this brilliantly illustrates how there is no single best app for learning English. There's really only the best app for your current level and your specific goal. For instance, complete beginners in that A1 to A2 range, they thrive on habit-building apps like Babbel or Duolingo. But if you're stuck at that super frustrating intermediate B1, B2 plateau, where you understand a ton but struggle to actually recall words, you need a totally different stack. This is where tools like Closemaster for contextual vocabulary and Link for reading volume really shine. And if speaking is your main hurdle, an app like Elsa Speak focuses intensely on pronunciation. The big takeaway? Don't just download 10 random apps at once. Match the tool to the specific job you need done today.
Now, to keep you from feeling completely overwhelmed, here is a highly realistic 30-minute daily routine for an intermediate learner. Check this out. You spend just 5 minutes on an app like Duolingo, purely to keep the daily habit alive. Then you spend 15 minutes doing the heavy lifting on an app like Closemaster, where you're actively retrieving vocabulary but within the context of full sentences. Finally, wrap up with 10 minutes of pure input, maybe listening to a podcast or reading an article on Link. The absolute secret here is that consistency, with a really constrained, focused toolkit, matters so much more than jumping around a dozen different apps and getting nowhere.
All right, on to Section 3, fixing common grammar mistakes, repairing the cracks.
Okay, so we've got our blueprint and we've got our tools. Now, let's roll up our sleeves and fix those structural, foundational cracks that can instantly give away a non-native speaker. Let's start with prepositions. They are notoriously tricky. Mostly because they almost never translate directly from your native language. Take this phrase, "The meeting is in Monday." You hear this mistake all the time. But Monday is a specific day. The golden rule here is actually pretty simple. Use on for specific days and dates, use in for longer periods like months, years, and seasons, and use at for exact times. So our quick fix, the meeting is on Monday.
Here's another incredibly common crack, mixing up make and do. Saying, "I need to make my homework," is incorrect. It really all comes down to the type of action. Make means you're creating something brand new that didn't exist before, like making dinner or, making a mistake.
Do, on the other hand, is for performing a task, an action, or a chore. So, the crucial point is, since homework is a task that you perform, the correct phrase is, I need to do my homework.
Moving right along to present simple questions. If you're just talking generally, you might say, she lives close to the beach, right? You've got that S on the end of the verb. But the moment we turn it into a question, a lot of learners accidentally say, does she lives close to the beach? As the folks at Espresso English remind us, we absolutely do not use the S on the main verb in present simple questions. Why? Because the helper verb does is already doing that heavy lifting for us. So just drop the S. It naturally becomes, does she live close to the beach?
Oh, and before we leave grammar behind, we absolutely have to talk about false friends. These are sneaky words that look exactly like a word in your native language, so you just naturally assume they mean the same thing. But spoiler alert, they don't. For example, if a Spanish speaker says, I am sensible, they usually mean they are emotional or sensitive, because that's exactly what sensible means in Spanish. But in English, sensible means you are practical, reasonable, and logical. Assuming a direct translation can completely change the entire meaning of what you are trying to say. So it definitely pays off to review a list of false friends specific to your native language.
And finally, Section 4, Mastering Sounds and Speaking, the finishing touches.
The structure is built, the cracks are filled, now it's time for the finishing touches. It is time to elevate from just reading and writing silently to actually speaking out loud and truly mastering English sounds. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it grounds academic phonetics into physical reality. When you study phonetics, you'll see these vowel charts mapping out where sounds like monophthongs and diphthongs live. But if you look closely, that chart maps directly onto the physical anatomy of your very own mouth. Whether your tongue is high or low, pushed to the front or pulled to the back, that physical placement literally determines the sound. A sound like the E in speak happens high up and in the front of your mouth. Meanwhile, the ah in heart happens low and way in the back. Pronunciation isn't just about trying to mimic a noise you hear. It is literally about physically training the muscles in your jaw, your tongue, and your lips to move into new, highly specific positions that they just might not be used to yet.
So, how on earth do we train those muscles in real life? Enter the shadowing technique. The EFGO blog highly recommends taking a lead from the stars for this one. Here's what you do. Find an interview on YouTube with a native English-speaking actor or celebrity that you really admire. Watch it once just to get the gist of what they are saying, but then watch it again and this time you shadow them. You actively mimic their exact words out loud, trying to match their native speed, their pauses, and even their facial expressions. It's an absolutely incredible way to bridge the gap between just knowing English in your head and physically, naturally producing the language with your mouth.
Well, there you have it. We've covered the entire blueprint. You know exactly how to set your mini victories, you know how to stack your apps without getting totally overwhelmed, you know how to patch up those pesky grammar cracks, and you understand the physical mechanics of speaking out loud. The foundation is poured, and the tools are right there in your hands. So I'm going to leave you with one final provocative question to answer right now. What is your very first measurable mini victory going to be today? Set that deadline, hit that checkpoint, and go start building your fluency.